Hello everyone, welcome back to another art time lapse. Today I am doing a piece named Take Flight. This is one of the newer pieces. It's probably one of the first pieces I did for the year 2024. I started off with something very safe, very comforting, and that is the concept of clouds. If you've seen some of my art time lapse in the past, you know how much I love painting clouds. I feel like painting clouds and painting nature is just so forgiving. You don't feel like you're being judged compared to, let's say, you paint a portrait. There's a lot of criticism about, like, does it look like the actual person? And I feel like no one would judge me if a cloud has extra fluff on it. So I really love painting clouds because it's dreamy, it's airy, it's something that I feel very relaxed painting. So here you can see I'm using acrylic wash mixed with plenty of water just to give it that watercolor effect. I think this is like year 5 or 6 of me using acrylic wash quite regularly. The brand I use is Holbein acrylic wash. This is not by any means something like I'm advertising or like am sponsored. This video is not sponsored, by the way. I'm only doing this just to describe my artist process. I find that the Holbein acrylic wash a little goes a long way. I bought a lot of them on my trip to Japan when I visited one of my favorite art stores of all time, and its name is Sakaido. So if you're ever in Tokyo, in Japan, for sure figure out a way to maybe make a trip to Sakaido. You would not regret it, especially if you're a fan of stationery. This was a tip that was given to me by another artist when I was at the Opus workshop. So definitely, if you're out on a trip and you're looking to make maybe some purchases for art supplies, check that out. So I picked up some art supplies there probably around 6 years ago, and I'm still using the acrylic wash from then. Of course, I don't have as much as I did previously, but like I mentioned, a little goes a long way, and I still use it on a regular basis. I don't know how many of you also have the same situation where you go to an artist's supply store and you end up buying a lot of supplies but not using it. I certainly still have a lot of experiences like that, but like I think for my acrylic wash, definitely getting my best bang for my buck, seeing that like I'm using it so regularly, so often, even though initially if you look at the price per mil per unit, it's quite expensive, but again, like a little goes a long way. I do dilute it with quite a bit of water, especially when I initially paint with it, because I want to have that watercolor effect. So other than that, you can also pick up Holbein acrylic wash at your local art store or Amazon. But highly recommended if you want to learn more about this particular medium. I do have a full YouTube video describing my review of this all-time favorite art material for me. And at the same time, if you are interested, I also have like a top 10 list of art supplies that I think is totally worth it, that you can find on my YouTube channel if you want to know like my first-hand experience of using various art supplies and which one I would totally splurge on and spend money on again. So here I'm just going to let you enjoy some of the art painting process for these clouds. So here going back, you can see that I'm using some white gouache to kind of go back and provide highlights for parts of the clouds to make them stand out a little bit more. The great thing about gouache is it does dry opaque, so you can overlap colors, like light colors on top of dark colors in case you make a mistake, and you can do that like at a later time, so you're not really stuck within that confined time frame as you would with watercolors, because for watercolors you really have to paint while the paint is still wet, and that's why I really love how forgiving acrylic gouache is. And besides just using like whites and blues, I wanted the clouds to have like a warmer tone. So I'm using this apricot color to add a little bit of highlight, but definitely blending it in quite a bit afterwards. As I mentioned before, this piece is called Take Flight. So I'm adding on these birds that are flying through the sky. And of course, because we're looking at the birds from like below, the shadowy figures of the birds are seen from below. So one thing to focus on when you're painting is think about like the lighting, the angle, like where is the light coming from and where is the viewer seeing the object or like the protagonist in the art piece from. So here you can see the light is beaming from behind the clouds, and of course I want to add a little bit of shimmer of yellow for the birds as well. I think if I wanted to, I can probably use a little bit of like glitter or like shimmery paint, because I think that would look really cool depending on the angle you look at the piece. The birds would shimmer in several different ways. This is something I didn't really think of until afterwards. I haven't really used shimmer or like glimmery paint so far, so if you have, I would love to hear your experience with it. But here is the final piece, Take Flight. You can see there are the birds, and there is Alice holding on to the birds by strings and just tugging her along as she takes flight into the air. Thank you so much for joining me on this art time lapse, and hopefully I will see you next time. Take care and stay creative, everyone. Bye for now.